Okay, so we have a Philip. All right, so all the fives. Hi, Philip. Okay, he's on mute. All right, just try to recap the step by step one more time. Is we need to build basically a structural intuitions, a structural stance, not just only just through that line and build that building. Sometimes before we know it, or if you don't think carefully, I think it's much easier to incorporate or confuse between structural elements versus architectural elements. And sometimes these days, a structural and an architectural element, they are sometimes blended. It's sometimes hard to make a clear decision. What should we use include in our structure model? But anyway, I think this is kind of more beginning and designs class. So what we are working on is more strict, clear uh, structure elements. So get into the your current ETABS model as I think everyone understand column, wall, and girder and beams terminologies, right? Don't get confused, beam and girder. I think beam is typically just beam supporting the slab, let's say one dimensional, uh, uh, distribute the load from the floor slab, but those beams are all supported by the girder. So those are terminology like that. They're taking for those the floor beams. So let's use the different color. So this is girder, right? So this is clear. So now question is, uh, what about like an exterior? Use a big like the spandrel. Uh, this is it. I think is kind of could be the first of all, not like the interior girder, like the beams or girder on along the perimeter of the building. Some members supporting like here walk up walk with a girder that support the floor beams, right? But the other side on the base, they are just located in exterior on the perimeter, but it doesn't take any floor beams. So their role is uh, kind of mixed. Some uh, in terms of the load pass uh, from the slab. So, but this is something that more terminology or idea from the load pass. On top, in addition to that, we should also understand those just all general, see, all the perimeter, the beams.
Professor, your screen
I
is
would say perimeter beams, but
your
yes,
screen is very laggy. It takes like a
right.
while for your markups to show
Slow.
up.
Oh, okay. Then maybe this is speed. Okay, maybe then I'll slow. So what do you see? Is I'm moving too fast or maybe a network?
It's probably a network thing.
Okay. Okay. So do you see my screen? I just drew that orange color along the perimeter.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay. So this is we also using another terminology, spandrel beams, right? This is something more from, I think, architecture side. I know beam and gutter, I think is mostly we could uh, define based on their role. Uh, I think maybe it's okay. Maybe we can use that frontliner. I think slab is the first that hit is support all the floor loads. The second step is beam, floor beam, then gutter. Okay, so those are structural elements and sequence of in load path. And the spandrel is coming from the architectural side. When you look at the full building, it's in glass. Sometimes it's opaque, or sometimes it's clear vision glass. So basically, architects try to hide that the area between the slab, concrete slab to ceiling, because those are all MEP ducts and all the utilities are located. So they try to cover it. So they're using spandrel glass, which is opaque. It's not clear. I think that's coming from this spandrel terminology came from that architectural. I think the function. Uh, so structurally, we also call this parameter beams. Right? Doesn't matter to be walking like gutter or beams. We call spandrels. So those beams typically had also they're doing the another role, which is generally support all the gravity loads from the floor slab, uh, but also enclosure weight. I mean, could could be the button wall or basically brick veneer with a backup concrete CMU blocks or precast wall. So I think all the parameter beam spandrels supporting additional weight for that enclosure element. So just keep in mind that this is called spandrel. The reason why I'm bringing it up, I think I briefly mentioned during class, those beams, since those are beams supporting that enclosure element, right? Clothing or brick, whatever's, is we need to treat a little bit more carefully, or the industry treat more carefully this beam performance. Um, so we have a different deflection criteria. You need to really depend on the enclosure material type, like brick and masonry or precast. Depends on their material and type of connections. Those deflection criteria should be uh, applied, criteria applied in a various way, but generally more restrictive. So I'm gonna show you that the in it, but generally we understand that typical floor beam and gutter, we try to limit our vertical deflection due to the live load, right? Less than L over length of the beam and gutter over 360, right? So this is general deflection criteria under the live load for typical interior beam and gutter. These spandrel beams, we have another criteria, much restrictive. So typically, we try to take smaller than or minimum between 38 and L over 360, right? So 38 is a little bit rule of thumb, but sometimes half inches. So, but 38 is pretty common practice, 38 inches. So 38 or L over 360. So we should limit our beam or design these spandrel beams to for their deflections, lateral deflection less than 38 and L over 360. So, so when you look at 30 feet length spandrel beams, let's say multiply by 12 is 360 inches, right? So divide by 360 is equal to 1 inches. So 1 versus 38 is a lot difference, right? So generally, spandrel beams it needs to be upscale, not even on control because of controlled by this deflection criteria. 38 is not just absolute number. I just said it could be 38 versus half inches. It depends on also a cotton wool weight, cotton wool system, and kind of stack joints between the glazing. So there are a couple of considerations we should understand and coordinate with architect. So that's some sort of additional criteria and a background. And as a structural engineer, when we design the beam, especially parameters, we should apply different criteria. So we may have a various criteria. I just realized that ETABS has a few other element features. So we could try and we could select those spandrel beams and apply the different deflection criteria. So so I try to show you those features as well. So let me just clean up again. So focus.
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the limiting factor for the deflection of the spandrel beams is due to the clearance for the jam hooks of the curtain wall?
There are many. So let's say, so beam is, let's say this beam is like that, right? It's composite action. So let's say we have some slab on top. So this is beam is composite beam. We have flow loads, right? Typically live load, whatever. If your case is 100 PSF or whatever, just 50, based on just your design criteria, live load. So in beam is deflect based on this load, right? But this live load deflection. Oh, okay. Maybe I can add one more stuff this time to just understand the construction sequence too. I think as you hear that the construction of composite or steel framing, we erect the column and beams, right? Let's recap a little bit because there's some also detail elements we need to understand. So column is erected, and then we erect all the beam and girder, and then place the metal deck, right? And then pour the concrete slab. So up to that is straightforward. We know that just the metal deck had to support that wet concrete during the temporary conditions.